welcome geometry. So this is how the format's going to be. It's going to be business as usual. It's going to be classwork, and then an assessment at the end of the unit. So I just want to establish that yes, we are reviewing the Pythagorean theorem, but the long-term goal is to get familiar with not only the three trig ratios, but the three reciprocal trig ratios. So we've got the three. Oh, this marker's out of ink. So we've got three trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent. But we're also going to discover the three reciprocal trig functions. Okay? So that's going to be the long-term goal. So we're going to get familiar with, we're going to get reacquainted with the Pythagorean theorem and how that relates to all six trig ratios. So the test topics are going to be going back to, is this a right triangle, yes or no? Or if I give you two sides of a right triangle, solve for the third unknown side. So then we're going to have, once you figure out those three side lengths, what are the trig ratios for an angle theta? And finally, just to make sure that we're solid for Algebra 2, I want to make sure that you can simplify a radical. Okay? So let's get on with topic number one, and that is getting back to the Pythagorean theorem. So the long-term question that we're going to ask is, how do you know if three sides form a right triangle? Remember that a right triangle is a triangle where one of the sides is 90 degrees. So I don't have a ruler on me, but that looks good. So let's just say that I've got myself a right triangle. Give that a box. Oh yeah. So that looks like a right triangle. And I'm going to call these side lengths A, B, and C. Okay? So I'm going to call them letters for now, but let's just clarify some vocabulary. Look at the 90-degree angle and look at its opposite side. A good clue is to look at the biggest angle, 90 degrees, and look at its opposite side. The largest angle will usually have the longest side length. And the longest side of a right triangle is called the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest side of a triangle. And after this, I'm going to throw away this marker because I picked it up a second time and I've messed up. Okay? So, the longest side of a triangle, in this case, right triangle, is called the hypotenuse. Now, the two shorter legs are called the legs. Let me make that R a little bit nicer. So the two shorter sides of a triangle are called the legs. Okay? So the question is, how do I know if three sides form a right triangle? Well, three sides form a right triangle if and only if they satisfy what's called the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem states that the relationship between three sides of a right triangle can be formed. Well, let me actually clear it up a little bit. If we have leg A, leg B, and hypotenuse C met. We square the legs and they should equal the square of the hypotenuse. clarify, square the legs, add them up, they should be equal to the square of the hypotenuse. Or, as you know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The reason I go over the thorough definition is because I run into a lot of people that say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And I ask them, well, what does that mean? They have no idea. But no, I do not have the coronavirus. I was just coughing. But the point is, I just want to make sure that you guys understand what's the big picture of the Pythagorean theorem. The goal is to verify that three sides form a right triangle, and if I know two of the sides, that I can solve for the third. I'm going to give you guys time to pause and go on to the next part of the video. Okay, so in the diagram, A and B are legs and C is the hypotenuse. Moving on. So the next part is so now we're going to do some practice problems and figure out, do these side lengths form a right triangle? Fun fact, if three whole numbers form a right triangle, those side lengths are called a Pythagorean triple. So, do these side lengths form a right triangle? So number one, let me make sure that I got the problems all set up for you. All right, number one, 5 inches, 12 inches, 13 inches. Okay, so first things first. I always like to write the formula on the side just to verify what I'm doing. I've got leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Okay, now the trick is to verify which one's the hypotenuse. The one that's opposite of the 90-degree angle, the side length opposite of the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to call that 13 squared. The other two legs, it doesn't matter which order they go. You can go short squared plus medium squared, or medium squared plus short squared. Either way, the two legs must get squared. Okay, so now let's square these and let's add them up in the end. 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. 13 squared is 169. All right, let's add up 25 plus 144. You can pull out your calculator and you will get 169 equals 169. So, question, do these three sides form a right triangle? The answer is yes, the Pythagorean theorem is satisfied. Okay, all good? Okay, moving on to problem number 2. 10 feet, 24 feet, 26 feet. So now I'm going to put them actually consecutive next to each other because I don't want to give away the fact that they actually form 10 feet, 24 feet, 26 feet. So once again, I'm going to rewrite the formula. I just want to make sure that everybody can see it. I just want to make sure that the camera, 10 feet, 24 feet, 26 feet. Well, first things first. Leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Let's verify that these form a Pythagorean triple and form a right triangle. So the longest side of the right triangle is 26. Sorry, I shouldn't say it's a right triangle without verifying it first. So the longest side is 26. And then I'm going to say that these two are the legs, just to go crazy. I'm going to put medium and then some, actually, you know what, let's just stay the course. 10 squared plus 24 squared should equal 26 squared. Okay, well, let's do the calculator work. Okay, so I know for a fact that 10 squared is 100. 24 squared, I believe is 576, but I'm going to make sure that I got, yep, it is 576. And 26 squared is 676. Let's add these together. 100 plus 576 is in fact 676. The left side equals the right side. 10 squared plus 24 squared does in fact equal 26 squared. Therefore, 10, 24, and 26 form a right triangle. They satisfy the Pythagorean theorem. These three sides form a right triangle. Okay. See if you can do the next two problems independently. 7 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards. Do 7, 9, and 10 form a right triangle? Okay. All right. You can pause to do this work independently, because now I'm going to go for it. Well, once again, the Pythagorean theorem states leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So the longest side of these three is 10. So I've got 10 squared. Let's compare that to 7 squared plus 9 squared. Well, I could do this without a calculator. 7 squared is 49. 9 squared is 81. And 10 squared is 100. The sum of the square of the legs should equal the square of the hypotenuse. 49 plus 81, well, 9 plus 1 is 10. 4 plus 8 is 12, and we're going to tack on a 1, so that'd be 130. Okay, 130 is equal to 100. So a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared in this case. Therefore, 7, 9, and 10 do not form a right triangle. The Pythagorean theorem is not satisfied. So therefore, the answer is no. These do not form a right triangle. 7 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards. Okay? Okay. Number 4. Over here. Let me just make sure I got the problem. 15, 16, and 20. So 15 kilometers, 16 kilometers, 20 kilometers. Okay? And then number 5 will be 14, 48, and 50. That board for you. Okay. Do these problems independently. Okay. I'm going to go up there, assuming you've hit the pause button. Okay. Let's check. 15 squared, oh sorry, let me set up the formula ahead of time. I'm one of those people who always likes to put the formula for every single problem just to make sure I don't get lost. I was always that kid in high school who, you know, I never really felt comfortable just plugging in numbers unless I knew exactly what I was doing. So This is why I do what I do. So remember that the longest of the three sides is 20, so 20 is going to get squared as the hypotenuse. 15 and 16 are going to be the legs, so 15 squared plus 16 squared should equal 20 squared. I'm going to need a calculator. I believe 15 squared is 225, but even I, with a bachelor's degree, sometimes make simple mistakes. It is 225. 15 squared is 225. 16 squared is 256. And I know 20 squared is 400. So we're going to add 225 plus 256, and that's going to be 481. Leg squared plus leg squared is 481. The hypotenuse is, the hypotenuse getting squared is 400. Is the Pythagorean theorem satisfied? The answer is no. The leg squared plus leg squared is greater than 400. So the answer is no, not a right triangle. Moving on to problem number 5, once again, we've got 14 inches, 48 inches, and 50 inches. Let's see if they form a right triangle. Messed up. Give away an answer. Once again, let's order them short, medium, and long, where the long is the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is 50, so I'm going to put that as the longest side. Once again, the legs are 14 and 48, so I'm going to make this 14 squared plus 48 squared, and that should be equal to 50 squared. I don't know my 14 times tables, so let's go to 14 squared. 14 times 14 is 196. 48 squared is 2,304. And 50 squared is 2,500. Add these up and we should see if the Pythagorean theorem works or not. 196 plus 2,304 is 2,500. So leg squared plus leg squared is 2,500. And the hypotenuse is 2,500. Is the Pythagorean theorem satisfied? The answer is yes. So therefore, these three side lengths form a right triangle. Okay. All right, we're going to do 3 more. Just taking a look at the clock. Yeah, we have time for 3 more, and then we'll call it a day. Sure. Number 5. Just make sure. Okay. 6, 7, and 8. 12 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles. 15, 36, 39. $33, 56, 65. Okay. All right, so let's check these out. Can I get a right triangle? Wow, that's a really big triangle if I'm measuring that in miles. 12 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles. Let me just put commas right there just to make it neater. So once again, let's use the Pythagorean theorem. Leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. First things first, can you tell me the legs and the hypotenuse? Good. 12 squared plus 20 squared should equal 30 squared. So we've got 144 plus 400 should equal 900. Well, I can do this math in my head. 144 plus 400 should be 544. 544 equals 900. Does this satisfy the Pythagorean theorem? The answer is no. So therefore, if it does not satisfy the Pythagorean theorem, it is not a right triangle. Number 7. Oof, I'm going to need a calculator for sure. Let me get my calculator. 15 and 36 are going to be the legs. And 39 is going to be the hypotenuse. So let's get down to business. 15 squared, well, I think I can do that now. 15 squared is 225. I apologize, I do not know 36 squared or 39 squared, so that's where the calculator comes in. So 15 squared, once again, is 225. 36 squared is 1,296. We're going to compare that to 39 squared, and that is going to be 1,521. Okay, now let's add these up, and hopefully the Pythagorean theorem is satisfied. 225 plus 1,296 is 1,521. Is the Pythagorean theorem satisfied? The answer is yes. So in this case, these three side lengths, 15 feet, 36 feet, 39 feet, form a right triangle. Moving on to the last problem of the day. We've got 33 centimeters, 56 centimeters, and 65 centimeters. For the last time, let's do the Pythagorean theorem, and hopefully these three side lengths can form a right triangle. So let's do leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So, which of the three sides is the longest? 65, so that becomes our hypotenuse. So we've got 65 as our longest side, and our two other side lengths are going to be our legs, 33 squared plus 56 squared. So 33 squared, I apologize, I do not know my 33 times tables. That'd be 1,089. 56 squared is going to be 3,136. Compare that to 65 squared, that's going to be 4,225. Let's hope that the Pythagorean theorem gets satisfied. I would not have guessed that these three would have been a Pythagorean triple. We'll see. 1,089 plus 3,136, and that is 4,225. Is the Pythagorean theorem satisfied from these three side lengths? And the answer is yes. These three side lengths form a right triangle. I hope you enjoyed day 1 of our video. I hope that the virus goes in decline and we can go back to having a class, because I feel all alone. I feel all alone just talking to myself. I'll see you guys on Thursday.